So in the last class we are discussing, if you remember, then we are discussing about the that how there were four schools of Buddhism, mainly Sautantrik, Vaibhasik, Yogachar, and Madhyamik. Then in the last class we are discussing that how there is a continuity of all schools of Buddhism. And we had also seen that how in the first Buddhist council, all the teachings of the Buddha were rehearsed, and in the second Buddhist council, we have seen that there was a split in the Sangha. And from there, first of all, first schism in the Buddhist Sangha occurred. And then in the third Buddhist council, at the time of King Ashoka, there were 18 schools of Buddhism. And then we had seen that how 18 schools of Buddhism were divided into two main parts, Mahasanghikas and Asthavirvad or Theravadins. So Theravadins were having 11 schools and 7 schools were belonging to Mahasanghikas. So our main emphasis of this paper, which we are discussing, that how there is a continuity of the Theravadins with the Mahasanghikas, how the thought of Buddhism is directly related with the thought of our Mahasanghikas, which are having 7 schools of Buddhist thoughts, and there how there is a continuity of the teachings of the Buddha, which has started at the time of the first Buddhist council, and how till the 18 schools of Buddhist thoughts were divided by the third Buddhist council. So we are discussing about, we have already discussed about the Yogacharins, Madhyamik thought, Sarvastivad, that is the Vaibhasik schools, and Sautrantric. So we had discussed about the main of the points, that what are the points of the Yogacharins and our Vaibhasikas. So in the last, when we are discussing, then we had discussed that how Yogachar, Buddhism, whose founder is Maitreya Nath, and how they are thinking that only consciousness is the real one, and others are not real, other things are not real. And in the Mahatmic thought, we have seen that both mental and non-mental things are not real. So this is the main thing, and we are discussing in the last class that how Yogachar thinks that consciousness is the only existing, and this is called as Vyavharik or empirical world. That is the only our consciousness is being represented, or our there is a ideal representation of the consciousness. So in that Yogachar schools we are discussing in the last class, and this philosophy Yogachar or Vijnanavad schools of Buddhism interprets the process of consciousness involving its representations as Vijnana Parinamvad. So till here we had discussed and we could not continue our. So according to Yogachara philosophers, the Buddha's teachings aim to make humans self-aware about subconscious bondage. It is the subconscious which binds a person in this process of repeated existence again and again. So one can get liberated through this yogic practices or spiritual attainment by concentrations, by the 40 subjects of meditations according to Theravada traditions, but according to our Yogachar traditions, only the concentrations on the consciousness, this can be, or our consciousness can be get liberated. So this was the so as soon as the consciousness is free from beginningless desire, so there, until unless there is no end of all the desires, whether they are related with the sensual pleasure, whether there is a desire to remain in this process of repeated existence, and where there is a desire not to remain in this process of repeated existence. This is the only free, you can say, and then one can get a state of eternal bliss. So it becomes free from illusion that world is outside, free from the compulsion of knowing the world from outside. So Yogacharan says that there are two aspects like Klesha Avaran and Gay Avaran. Klesha Avaran is the covering the consciousness by the defiling factors or the kleshas. Kleshas are those immoral states which cover the nature of the reality, that all things are subject to impermanence, all things are subject to suffering, and all dhammas are subject to soulless. This is the kleshas. These are the kleshas. There are 10 types of kleshas in the Theravada traditions, and these are the kleshas which defile our consciousness. And due to these defilements, a person does not know the nature of the reality. So, Yogacharins or Vijnanavadins thinks that these clays, the covering of the defiling factors must be removed, and then the covering of the knowledge can be attained. So there is a process through the yogic attainments or yogic practices, or through the concentration. So one can remove the defiling factors which bind a person from one state to another state. So this is the when consciousness becomes free, it is the dual nature that persons is able to know the nature of the reality. So when the defiling factors are removed, then this state of the consciousness is called as enlightenment, or a person gets a state of bodhi. So after attaining it, it is the Yogachar ideals of Maya. This is the main ideal thought of the Yogacharins. So this is the development theories, and they were development, and in this way we can say that there are so many aspects of the teachings of the Buddha which have been represented in different schools of the thought, but the underlying unity among all the schools is that there are unitary, all the teachings of the Buddha, like Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, Law of Dependent Originations, or Law of Karma and Rebirth, and others, they are thinking. But according to non-Buddhist sects, which says that all things are eternal or all things are annihilated, that is the Saswatavad or Uchedavad, that is school which thinks that everything is eternal and everything is annihilated. So this is the non-Buddhist sects which are thinking like this. So this is the, you can say, and we have already seen that how all schools of Buddhist sects think that a man is a composition of panch skandhas or five aggregates, namely Rupa Skanda, Vedana Skanda, Sangya Skanda, Sankhara Skanda, and Vijnana Skanda. So this Pudgal has no essence. We have already discussed that there is no permanent entity in the personality of a being. We call any persons for the sake of naming any persons, or give any designations to any persons, like Nagsen, Sursen, Birsen, Sihasen, only for calling those persons. But na heta puggalo pulavati, there is no permanent entity in the personality of a being. So this is called as Nairatmavad, that the school which thinks that there is no permanent entity, or there is no pudgal, or there is no any jeev or the soul in the personality of a being. So entire Buddhist traditions can be called as Naratmavad. So all the four major Buddhist schools of thought, like Vaibhasik, Sautantric, Madhyamik, and Yogachar, they accept the theory Nairatmavad. All schools of Buddhist thought agree with the statement that there is no permanent entity in the personality of a being. So, in that way, there is that philosophy which is started in the Madhyamik thought, like Madhyamakarika, in which Acharya Nagarjuna, which says that all things are essenceless. So the nature of the real things are essenceless. There is no real existence of the mental or non-mental things. And it says that it is the only middle path or Madhyam Pratipada. In Pali, it is the Majjhima Patipada. So that Majjhima Patipada is the main thing through which the eternalism, Saswatbad, and annihilationism, that is the Uchchedavad, both are being removed. So this is the Eight Noble Path or Madhyama Pratipada. We have seen in the Theravada traditions that there are two extremes, namely Kamesu Kamsukulikan Yogo, that association with the sensual pleasure, and second extreme is called as association with the self mortification, Atkilmathanu Yogo. So, in between that, Buddha prescribed the middle path, Majjhima Patipada, which takes a being in the state of enlightenment, through which Majjhima Patipada, Tathagat, the Buddha has got a state of eternal bliss. But here, Madhyama Patipada says that there is no Saswatabad. It negates the two extremes, namely Saswatabad, eternalism, and annihilationism, that is the Uchchedabad. So, this is the theory of Nagarjuna, which has been expounded or explained in the text Madhyamakarika. And later on, the philosophers or acharyas, Chandrakirti, in the Madhyamaka avatar, he has elaborated this theory of Madhyama Pratipada in different manner. So this Sunyata, which means that there is a Pudgal Nairatma. So whenever there is the Pudgal Nairatma, that whenever there is a person who thinks that there is no permanent entity in the personality of a being, so it cognizes the sense of the emptiness. And later on in the Bodhicharya avatar, Acharya Santidev also promotes the development of the Bodhicitta, that is the seed of the enlightenment or consciousness of the enlightenment. And for that, he gives the two aspects of Bodhicitta, namely Paramartha Bodhicitta and Samvriti Bodhicitta. Through the Paramartha Bodhicitta, a person cognizes this emptiness, that all things are subject to impermanence, all things are subject to suffering, and all dhammas are subject to soulless. This is called as Paramartha Bodhicitta in the Bodhicharya avatar. So here in Madhyamakarika, Acharya Nagarjuna also says that this sunyata, that is the emptiness, through this emptiness, a person is able to know the nature of the reality, that all things are subject to impermanence, all things are subject to suffering, and all dhammas are subject to soulless. So this is our madhyamik thought. And it also says that everything that appears to be solid, substantial, or permanent is actually a construction. This is only it is not the real one. It is only a, you can say, construction. So it also promotes a theory which is called as Swalakshana. Swalakshana means that all dharmas are distinct from each other and they are momentary. They do not stay at one place. So they are called as a momentary. And this theory of momentary is called as a momentariness, Chan Bhangurata. that all things are subjected to change at every moment, and there are altogether thoughts, moments which are also changing. So they appear for a moment and perish. We have already seen that law of dependent originations. It is said that everything is there is no self-independent entity. Everything comes into existence dependent on some cause and conditions. That is the hetu and the pratyaya. So a thing which appears and which after some moments it disappears or it perishes. So this is the Lakshana Dharma, and it is said that the stream of such momentariness or momentary dharma is the only real one, or those things which are visible, they are not real. So appearance of any sanghat or the aggregate, namely Rupaskandha, Vedanaskandha, Sangyaskandha, Sankharaskandha, and Vijnanaskandha, as having continuity and extension, is merely a conceptual construct that is called as Vikalpa. So there are some of the technical terms which have been given in Sanskrit. So like Panchaskandha, Swalakshana, or Vikalpa. So here it is said that this is the Aham or self. This is the name of the construct made out of the different skandhas, which are series of moments. So we have seen in the Milinda Pahiyo also that it is said that Jatha Yang Sambhara hoti Saddorototi, Evam Khandesu hoti Sattoti Samutti. Just like the parts of the chariot make a name of the chariot, in the same way, the five aggregates make a personality of a human being, that is called as Sattva or a human being. So this, but again, the Yogacharyas who accept the Madhyamik theory of universal nothingness, that is the emptiness or sunyata, through the sunyata, a person is able to know about the that all things are subject to soulless. That is the Nairatmavad. But Yogacharyans mold it into a particular form as per their intellectual inclination. All things or being may be unreal or speculative. So this is the Yogacharyans or Vijnanvadins. But the very act of speculation or thinking cannot be real. So all things or beings of a dream cannot be unreal, but the experience of the dream, which constructs and projects these things, cannot be unreal. So this is the most important thing that Yogacharyans say that the things or the being of a dream, which can be unreal, but the experience of the dream, which constructs and projects these things, cannot be unreal. So this is according to Yogacharyas. The fact of thinking, experiencing, imagining, speculating, and dreaming cannot be denied. So these are the phenomena which are taking place. But the Yogacharyans, it is essential to free the consciousness from the appeared duality of seer and seen, knower and the known. So it is called as Grahya Sunyata. So this is the theory you can say. So the theory of Sunyata, there are three aspects related with the Puddhakal Sunyata, Drishti Sunyata, and Grahak Sunyata. So emptiness, there are three aspects with the, and this sunyata, we come to know that all things are subject to soulless. But there are three aspects like Pudgal Sunyata, emptiness, that there is no Atma, there is no permanent entity. And second is the emptiness related with the false view, Drishti Sunyata. Then Grahya Grahak Sunyata, that emptiness related with the receiver and the giver. So this is the principle of Pratitya Samutpad, and this is and we have already seen that in the law of dependent originations that everything is self-dependent entity. Whatever the things which comes into existence, they are based upon some cause and conditions. So here, the birth, decay, and the death, jati, jara, and the maran only constitute the cycle of the life. That is the Bhauchak Parampara, and it is the summary of all human worldly existence. So this is the some of the things which we are, and there are four noble truths which are coming in Theravada traditions also for Madhyamik and Yogacharins and Sautrantic and Vaibhasikas. They are all four noble truths that there is a suffering, there is a cause of suffering, there is a cessation of suffering, and there is a path which leads towards a cessation of suffering. So these four schools, four noble truths are common to all schools of Buddhism. So we are not going to discuss all these four schools of but the principle of Pratit as a metaphysical principles which are available in all four schools. And when metaphysical interest took over pure moral interest, the law of Pratit became a universal law of causation. So here it is said that whenever there is a metaphysics, means that when the mind is controlled through the moral actions, the Prakriti Samutapad, because the law of the karma is directly related with the law of dependent originations also. So we have seen that there are 12 links in the law of dependent originations. अविद्या पचे संखारा संखारा पचे बियान बियान पचे नाम रूप पचे फस्सो फस्सो पचे वेदना वेदना पचे तन्हा तन्हा पचे उपादान उपादान पचे भव भव पचे जाति जाति पचे जरा मरण. So these are the 12 links. So these 12 links are universal law of dependent originations. So this whatever the actions, whether they are moral or immoral, they are being guided by the law of dependent originations or the law of causality, that all things are causally related with one another. So this happens through depending upon that we have seen in the Majjhim Nikaya. It has been said, imasmim sati idam hoti, imasmim asati idam na hoti, imas upada idam upajjati, imas nirodha idam nirojjati. In the same way, in the Madhyamik thought, or Acharya Nagarjuna, in his Madhyama Karika, says that idam pratiti idam bhavati, that dependent on then this, there is the existence of this. So same has been also said in our, so it shows that there is a continuity of the all with those thoughts or the teachings of the Buddha, which have been established by the Buddha himself. So there is a continuity of these, but only there is a difference in the interpretations by the acharyas. So here Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti says that if cause and effect are entirely distinct, so there are differences that how these things in the Pali Suttas we find that Hetu and the Pachya, that is the cause and conditions, they are taking place one together. But here Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti says that if cause and effect are entirely distinct and completely different from one another, then how it is there is a causally, or there both these two things are causally related, or in another way, how is causality possible? So if the hetu and the pratyaya, cause and the conditions are the different, how there is a causality which is possible? So how can cause and non-cause be differentiated if both are equally unrelated with the effect? So it is not essential that cause is related with the effect. both are relative, as if both are formed by each other. So, in another way, we can understand that man, nature, and the environment. So man is related with the nature, nature is related with the environment, and man is the causally related with the nature, and nature is causally related with the environment. Both these three, man, nature, and the environment, they are relative, and both our man and the nature or nature or the environment, they are formed by each other. So everything is dependent on this. So cause and effect both should be taken as essenceless. So here hetu and the pratyaya, there is no any essence at all. They are essenceless and natureless. That is why it is called as nisvabhavata, or there is the emptiness. Here, nisvabhavata means there is no existence of the real and the unreal things. So again, it is said that there is a karj karan bhav. There is a appearance of the cause and effect, which does not refer to an actual law of the causation, which is operating between the two reals. Rather, it is indicative of the unreality of the two. So, Pratit Samutpad, it is said that the principle by which the origination of each Vigyan movement is regulated is called as Pratit Samutpad. Again, Yogacharins, this is the Madhyamik, but the Yogacharin philosophy considers Vigyan as the only real thing. It takes Pratit Samutpad as a feature of ultimate reality as opposed to Madhyamik thought or Madhyamik thinkers. So here there is a Madhyama Pratipada, that is the middle path, which create their own versions of the middle path between the two extreme views. So Madhyamik thought gives emphasis that it negates the two extremes, namely um, eternalism and annihilationism, Shashvatavad and Uchchedavad. So, but in the Yogacharins, it says the theory of universal momentariness of the things, and at the same time, it claims that it is in the middle of two extremes like nihilism and externalism. Nihilism and externalism. So, theory of Pratit Samutpad is a compromise or the adjustment between the two extremes, namely eternalism and annihilationism. So, although things are momentary and not eternal, still origination of the moments is not without law. So, for Madhyamikas, any permanent soul or the Atman and the momentary stages into which it gets dissolved, both are equally unreal. To hold truth as a substantial and eternal soul is intellectual conservatism. So they deny the existence of the such Atma or the soul also is equally conservative. So they propounded the theory of the middle path, Madhyama Marg. So to realize the emptiness or voidness or the sunyata, all mental or non-mental things are void. All viewpoints is the Madhyama Pratipada of Nagarjun or the Madhyamik thought. So here nor is metaphysically indifferent to pure consciousness for the Vigyapti Matrata or Vigyanvadins. That is why it is called as Vigyapti Matra. There is a mind only, there is a consciousness only. Here only its appeared role of a knower is to be negated. Knower means that who knows the subject or the object, it is to be negated. So this is the Avidharmic theory that is the Jokacharins, that the thing and its knowledge both are equally real. But for the Madhyamik Sunyavada theory, that both are unreal. that is the thing and the knowledge, both are unreal because of being mutually related. So the realist, that is the Yogacharyans, both theories are extreme positions and should be avoided. So Vijnanavad is the middle philosophical position, claiming that knower is real and known is unreal. So the principle of Pratitsamutpad as metaphysical principle. So Buddhist schools too were committed to an ideology in their philosophical development, and these schools developed a thought which is called as Nairatmavad, that there is no permanent entity in the personality of a being. So theory of the sunyata, or the emptiness or wideness, and pratit samutpad, and the madhyam pratipada, that is the middle path. So we have already discussed what is the Nairatmavad. It is not a mere theoretical enterprise, but a philosophy of life as a well, because it negates the existence of the permanent entity in the personality of a being. So the goal of Nirvana or Atadipa Bhava cannot be actualized without going beyond the lower demands of the body and mind. So all Buddhist ideological systems were put forward against natural inclination of the human consciousness. So Buddhist way of thinking and living is also called as Arya Drishti. This is the viewpoint. So this is the main thing. So Atadip Bhava and the Sakai Drishti are the main inspiration of Buddhist way. So be unlike to yourself, or remove the I-ness or the concept of the self from a person. That is the Sakai Drishti, that the false views related with the permanent entity in the personality of a being. So these can be removed. So this can be removed by the three stages, the path, namely Shil, Samadhi, and Vajna. So we'll discuss about all these things. So this is the that how there is a continuity of Buddhist schools of thought which have been discussed in, and how there is a continuity of the traditions from Theravadins to Madhyamikas or the Yogacharyans. So this is the essence, and in the next class we will discuss about the Mahasangikas. What are the main points of the Mahasangikas? How these Mahasangikas developed at the Second Buddhist Council, and what are the main thoughts of the Mahasangikas? So we'll discuss. And in the last email, I had mailed you one of the materials related with the Buddhist sects. So kindly go through those materials, the first chapter especially, where there is the explanation of all divisions of the 18 schools of Buddhist thoughts. And especially we have to discuss the Mahasangikas, that how these Mahasangikas, which were formed in the Second Buddhist Council, so what are the main arguments, what are the main thoughts of the Mahasangikas, and how it can be compared with the Theravadins. So this is the main essence of our paper, to compare the teachings of the Buddha available in the Theravada traditions with the Mahasangikas thought.